So, hi there, everyone. I am so honored and blessed to be speaking with Amara Samata today. I'll just give you a little reference as to who Amara is, how people know Amara. Um, Amara is often referred to by those who have worked with her as an illuminator, a healer, a revealer, or the real deal, meaning that she lives a life in alignment or integrity with what she speaks of. Amara is the founder and lead teacher and trainer of Inner Guidance International, both a movement, and a holistic modality dedicated to awakening truth, trust, transparency for a more conscious collective world culture. She's also a mentor and coach and has created a life-changing signature breakthrough program, her 6-day life transformation retreat, which yields profound results in the process of sustainable human responsibility and evolution. Amara is currently developing online programs dedicated to offering the same opportunity to others outside of her growing home, centers in Bali, Sweden, and soon to be Canada. Amara's background includes 12 years working and training as a Kundalini and Hatha yoga teacher, 5 years mentoring with a Filipino healer and mystic, and 2 years daily teachings, initiations, and practices with the Dalai Lama in I can't read
Tibetan,
what that. What is
Tibet,
it?
Tibetan Buddhism.
Tibetan Buddhism. In 2012, Amara experienced a tipping point or awakening that has influenced her life and work ever since. After 7 years of personal integration and professional development, she's now showing up as a speaker, writer, and a guide to all those ready to embrace holistic change. So, welcome, Amara. I
Here
have
we are. Thank you so much
so much
for that
respect and
introduction.
love for this woman, and just so honored to even be, sitting here and having this conversation. So thanks for
I'm honored too. Hi, everyone.
high five.
Yeah.
So I just figured we'll dive into some questions. There's probably so many questions that people have for Amara, but I will just go with this. Start with some
Yeah.
came up with.
Yeah, I love the questions that you came up with. They were great.
Cool. So first of all, I'd love to know what you think are some misconceptions about awakening that you would like to debunk. There's a lot of stuff out there, a lot of
Right.
ideas and
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. And first, I want to say that, just to be honest with everyone, you presented these questions to me at midnight last night, and I wrote them down for a few minutes before I went to bed. And I really appreciate, I really loved the direction that your questions were offering to this dialogue. So
Well,
yeah, I'll just refer to a few notes and then also just, speak from what I know. But I would say the main misconception that seems to be available in the marketplace out there is one that awakening is some sort of a destination, that it's sort of like, I did it, I'm awake or I'm enlightened and now I'm done. So although it is the end of, I call it like the love affair with your limited self, it's really the end of this sort of naive, small, less expanded experience of self and reality. It's really just the beginning of this more expanded view. So I wrote that it's the beginning of the invitation to live the initiation that the awakening is offering. So say that a little more succinctly. It is the beginning of the invitation to live the let me say it again. I really want to nail this. I wrote it last night. I was like, this is so good. It's brand new.
Beautiful.
It's brand new trying to say it.
I feel a shift as you're saying it. I
Yeah,
really.
so let's shift into this. Let's shift into it. And, okay. It's the beginning of the invitation to live the initiation that the awakening offers.
Yeah.
There, we got it. So that's just a beginning, right? there is a type of initiation that happens, and like all initiations, whether or not you engage in them and you start to integrate them, is going to make a big difference between whether you live an awakened life or you sort of begin to formulate a story around what that awakening was or what it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's like, it's just the beginning of seeing yourself in a more expanded way, reality. Like, that's where life begins at awakening. Like, it's really not a big deal. We should just be all like, let's just get there and then let's go. Like, you're not done. Part of you is done. We could say that is true. But another part
Part of you dies.
just begins.
A part of you dies. Is that right?
It feels like that.
Or
Yeah, it will feel like a death. Awakening feels like a death to the old structure, the old strategies, the old belief systems, the old way of operating system that was based a lot on survival,
right.
which is nothing wrong with that. It's just there's something more to life than surviving. There's more to experience, and certainly the experience of self, in these kind of personal and transpersonal views. There's more to it than what meets the eye. And when we break through the fear that is typically holding that limitation in place, it is often felt as scary as death.
Right.
Yeah. People don't die waking up.
Right.
Like, nobody explodes and dies and,
yeah.
falls
Like,
over.
some people will choose to cross over to the other side. Maybe it got too much for them to integrate. Like, they'll actually choose death and exit, right? But as you're awakening, you're not going to actually, and you'll have ego deaths or you'll have identity deaths.
Yeah, ego death is not the same. You're usually just, sitting somewhere and what's happening is happening. But it will certainly tell you that you're going to die. And in fact, when we do sort of break out of the shell of that limited perspective and start to grow into our expansive mastery, that shell that's been protecting you and keeping you in it, that's its job, is to keep you there. And at some point it has to crack, right?
Yeah.
But the shell has its own spin. It's not designed, the shell doesn't like evolve. The shell falls away and then the evolution comes out, if we're going to use sort of a seed metaphor. So that shell will tell you, like, no, stay here, don't go out, don't do this. If you do, you're gonna. And for humans, it will always tell you three things. On the negative side, or the lack side, when you're awakening, it will start to tell you, your mind will start to tell you, you're going to go crazy, which is a loss of mind, which is a loss of strategies to navigate reality in a way that feels
like losing control.
Safe. You're going to go crazy, you're going to lose control, you're going to die, which is a loss of life, because it can only imagine what's outside of me. I have no idea, so I think we'll just call it death. Or you'll lose something very particular to you that you don't want to lose, like you'll lose your identity, or you'll lose your connection to family, you'll lose all the wealth that you've built up, you'll lose your career, people won't understand you, it'll be boring, you'll just get slammed with all these
reasons not to do it.
And exactly.
And our higher self's like, our infinite self's like, come on, do it. And that's the conflict. Well, it can feel like a conflict, or you say like a negotiation. I remember in your inner guidance training, I love that.
Yeah, so there's good training around how to negotiate those moments that are really right for you, right for each individual. And that's really important.
That's really important. I feel that too, because I've seen that a lot of people will try to push through, and I would put a label like wounded masculine on that. I don't know, some people might not see it that way, but it's like this pushing and forcing yourself. But I feel like that's like pushing your inner child forward, and it's kicking and screaming, and then you're going to have like a bigger battle.
Yes. Yeah, and then you can also activate a sort of a rally or a tantrum of the ego.
Yeah.
And then kind of be worse than had you not do that. So it takes a lot of compassion to the side of the self that's afraid of sort of that next level expansion of you,
Yeah.
outside of your ideas of it, because it will really destroy the ideas of what you think it is. It's not the idea of it, it's something more than an idea. And that will, yeah, if you force that, yeah, there's always a plus and a minus to every aspect. But this is coming up a lot in sort of, I guess, this kind of sentiment that maybe I need to take something or ingest something that's going to force me to just have to face myself, right? And I do work on face yourself programs that are integral to really what's right for you, step by step, so that there's a sustainable and not a reactionary experience of that. And my experience, what I've seen with that is that although on one side, we are sort of at this point where we think, gosh, we're kind of losing it as a species. We need to get our act together. You know, we need to speed up. Like, let me take some accelerators somehow. But again, if we don't have the tools to drive that and to live that in the context and the support, it's kind of like taking off in a car before the engine's really fully built. You're really not going to get that far. And you're always going to have to go back and meet what you were trying to, pass over anyway.
I see. That makes really good, really perfect sense. Beautiful.
So it's a real mastery to know that edge of like how much am I going to push myself, coach myself, bring myself, and then how much am I going to, sort of baby myself, support myself through that.
And just like allowing, it's kind of both, I guess, right?
You need some of both, yeah.
Yeah. So I'd love to know what your top 3 tips for those consciously choosing an awakening path.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, so yeah, I have some tips for you. The first tip I would say that if you have had a taste of what is, we could say beyond, we'll just call it the beyond. It's bigger than you. You might call it emptiness. We might call it the divine unity, something that was super significant. Like you can't miss that, that was like a kind of compounded aha moment where everything just sort of, we call it a taste. So it could be there's 2 sides, the unity and the emptiness, or the divinity and the emptiness, the all, the nothing, whichever side or both that you tasted it on. If you've had that, which more and more people are, my tip is don't tell yourself the I got it or I lost it story. So as soon as you have that, what will happen is the egoic structure, again, feeling it's a threat to its own sort of way of being, especially if you haven't had training around how to handle those moments with all sides of yourself that are going to come rushing in and what they're going to present to you. Just don't tell yourself that I got it, I found it, aha, because as soon as you insert the an I statement, I got it, I found it, you'll notice it falls away. Like that's the fastest way to have the experience of
ripped away.
I don't have it anymore. And I used to do this a lot when I was in my practices, or even in my yoga classes. I would go very deep into experiences, and then something would start to emerge, and I would say like I touched it, I met it, there it is. And then it would just sort of, poof, disappear, because the I was back, which is defending me from that, which I was experiencing.
Oh, wow.
So
that's interesting, because I had a experience one time. I had an out-of-body experience, and as soon as I realized I was out of my body, I was so excited. It felt amazing. I felt like heaven. I felt so light and so held, and I just wanted to travel. I was like, I'm going to go travel, and I was so excited, and then I went back in my body. And I don't know if that's similar to what you're talking about, but it just it's like I have it, and here I go, and then no.
Yeah, I have it. I've met it, I've done it, and you've just done what's called inserting the ego into the spiritual realization.
Mm.
And then it just limits it back down to that sort of that realm of limitation.
I see.
So
Yeah.
people will either say I got it, or they'll tell themselves the opposite, which is actually even more damaging, is to say I lost it.
Mm.
So even though you had an experience of lost it, if you can catch yourself and recommit to, sort of whatever brought you to that experience, or however much you can anchor that experience, or kind of re-allow it to be, and not tell yourself I lost it,
Mm.
the faster you're going to allow the opening and the unfolding of it. So my teacher taught me never to say I lost it, even if it feels like that. Don't even touch that sentiment with my mind.
Mm.
Nor do I say I gained anything.
Mm.
Don't touch it at all. Just, it may come up, and then it goes, because just staying right in the center, right in the middle of those two stories. And at the heart of that is sort of this: thank you so much. I don't really need whatever I am that's experiencing these two sides. I don't need you to come and tell me a story. This that I am is okay as it is. And that's the really refined work. So yeah, if people have had that experience, invite it back. Don't try to grab it. It's not, you can't grab it back, but you can invite it back. You can set the stage for surrendering, and then watch yourself every time you try to say, I'm awake now. That's gonna just push it to the side, or I'm not awake anymore. So it's gonna put that down. Second tip is for those who haven't had a taste of that, is don't fall into the trap of telling yourself that it's rare, or it's special, or it's only for very spiritual people, or it takes a long time or many lifetimes or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
The awakened view is natural. It's simple and it's natural.
Mm.
And what's actually bizarre is how much effort we've put into turning away from it.
Mm. Right.
So
Yeah.
these stories that it's rare is just more effort of avoidance.
Mm.
It's not rare at all. I mean, it
Yeah.
is in that it's sort of culturally, systemically rare, but it certainly doesn't have to be.
Right. Because it
And it's
seems like
available
we
to
make
everyone.
it's like it's harder to resist who we are, I feel, but we've created these games to really resist. But like the allowance or the surrender is actually easier, but we just don't know that we can do it, or that it's available, or that only
Yeah.
gurus can do it and normal people can't.
Yeah, and everyone who in my field who touches it, it's almost always the same sentiment. Wow, how simple and how complicated I was making it.
Mm.
Um, and then I guess the third tip is that for those out there who don't know what the heck I'm talking about, don't fall into the trap, but want to, that are curious, either curious or like, wow, I'd really like to know what is this, sort of taste of true nature. What is that? Don't fall into the trap of only thinking that you can resource that from the outside. It's beautiful to have guides and tools and structures that help create the ground for this to arise in. But you have your own structures and your own ground built within your own system. You can self-realize, self-actualize. And that's sort of been a myth for a long time, that you can't do that. And I would say we need some of both. We need enough context and understanding that it doesn't sort of go sideways, which can happen. And I'm working to create material to help people get a hold of that, and it should be more available. But don't fall into the trap of thinking somebody's going to give it to you, or you're going to find something out there that it's going to make that happen for you. Although you can get a hold of things that are supportive, no one could do the work for you. Absolutely no one. And if they could, then that's bad news. I'm going to call that bad news, because that means you're a robot. Like, I could just take your brain out, program it, and put it back in, right?
Right.
Now you're awake. Well, you're not going to be you awake. You're going to be something else. And you won't even get to have the experience of they did it for me anyway. So as long as we have the experience of free will, no one else can do it for you.
Right. It'd be, and yeah, it wouldn't be the same world if it wasn't a free will world.
It would not be the same world.
Yeah. So I've heard of weird worlds getting created with AI intelligence and not going so well. And
Yeah.
Kyle's my partner, we've received messages like, keep choosing organic consciousness.
Yeah.
So it's good.
Yeah.
Kind of
authentic intelligence is what we need, not artificials. If we want to stay human. If we don't want to stay human, yeah, then humanness and human essence will be lost. And I say, let's master it before we let it go. It's a real shame to use that word shame appropriately in its full power. It is a real shame to let go of our humanness before we've mastered and even deeply come to know what it is and what it's capable of.
Right. So true. I love that. So I'd love to know what the weirdest thing or the thing that stands out to you that you've seen during the inner guidance process. And I just realized that some people might not know, how
Sure.
the inner guidance process works. So if you wanted to just give us a little idea about that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. The inner guidance process is really a combination of all the things that worked for me. And it's about activating our total self-intelligence. Instead of compartmentalizing it, we bring it in all at once. So you have a physical intelligence or kinesthetic way that your body will express. It's having a physical, biological, intelligent experience or conversation or negotiation. The heart in its emotional field has an intelligence. The mind in its intelligent field to reason, for cognitive intelligence, to visualize, to connect the dots, to be logical, expansive. It has an intelligence. And then your energetic field, sometimes called your spirit or your greater human potential, I'll just call it energy, you have an energetic intelligence. And if we are sort of closing the door on any of those while we're trying to come to know the truth of who we are and what we want to be and do in this world, we kind of have this half-baked, unfulfilling experience of life at best. So I sort of unlock all the doors and invite in a lot at once. That's why it's very accelerated. And we do that through touch on the body. We do that through sound. We do that through language and questioning and guiding visualizations in which you question yourself. And then we have energetic support. And all of that's offered in a field with no agenda other than to support you to discover the truth within you. We're not feeding you any truth, and we trust that the truth always sets you free. It always liberates you, even if it's a half truth or partial truth. That's okay. We work with whatever truth you have.
Yeah.
And that begins to evolve you and grow you. So we do that through providing a context and then literally laying people down on the floor and saying, okay, here we go. So it's a very permissive field that allows you to feel all of yourself, which we are certainly not used to in this world, having that kind of permission.
No way. Right. Yeah. As we know in public, you can't, people will look at you funny if you start screaming or yelling or crying, loudly.
Yeah. If you express your physical, your emotional, children do it until they're told, stop, stop, stop.
Right.
If you look at children when they're quite young, before they've been conditioned not to be themselves, they'll go to restaurants and they'll lie on the floor and they'll kind of like play under the table and they'll make loud noises. And then it's not to say that the world should be living like children lying around all over the place.
Yeah.
But it's to say that when we have access to that and we allow ourselves to have access to that and we allow others to have access to that, then we can begin to negotiate the world that we want to live in a considerate way. and say, hey, maybe over here's the roll around part of the restaurant, and over here's the quiet part. And,
Right.
over here's this part. And how about we like open it up and we let things happen. And then we look at, do we still want to let this happen? And what does this lead to? And what does this lead to? And we really stay on top of what's happening. And then, that's a more organically negotiated reality than the one we're currently working with.
Right. Because it just seems like everyone's trying to fit in, be a certain thing, look a certain way, that so they'll be acceptable and not judged. And I just love that since doing this process and doing my own awakening process, like I can go to parties now with people who understand if I just want to go in the corner and meditate. In the old days when I was in college, I'd go to these parties where the heels, the makeup, and try to look a certain way. And, it was just so limiting, like to who I was and what I wanted to do, but I didn't feel comfortable. But now it's so nice to have that. It makes me want
Yeah, you were desperate to be seen and recognized, to give yourself a chance to be a you, but now you've built trust in yourself to know how to be you no matter what's happening.
to.
That's significant freedom.
Mhm.
So I would say very simply, the weirdest thing I've seen happen is not what happens in inner guidance. It's what people are doing before they come in.
Mm.
That's weird. Like what
Yeah,
you're talking about. Like living it.
Yeah, judge it as
Say
weird.
again.
We went judge
Yeah.
it weird when people are on the mats and throwing tantrums and whatever, but we just aren't used to that.
Well, I mean, the way that people are living these sort of unfulfilled lives in the name of trying to be something fulfilling, like that's weird.
Right.
That's kind of crazy. So when people come in and they start to open up in order to then put themselves back together in a way that feels again in new alignment with their new sense of relationship to trust and truth and vulnerability and transparency, that's beautiful. um, I guess probably the most intense part is where, there's times where people go back and they seem to work with these kind of embedded memories, unfinished embedded memories.
Mm.
And they'll start to redo something
Mm-hmm.
and act out something. And it means that they're kind of playing with meaning in terms of past, present, or future. And they'll kind of click something into place and will help them. And those have extraordinary results in people's life. That's where the miraculous healings have actually occurred, when people go back into the trauma or the unfinished experience and remaster that moment. And
And is it different
that's
for everyone, the remastering, or is it always more like if you're going to master that, are you going to bring it into a more loving lens, or is it different for everyone to the completion of that trauma cycle?
oh yeah, well, I mean, you suddenly see what you couldn't see before, so that always breeds more choice, not less.
Mm.
More love, not less. More freedom, not less. As
Mm.
soon as you can see, it's sort of like, I'm going to go back into this prison and I'm going to unpack it and realize, oh, it's actually not a prison, and actually the door's open, and actually I was just making this up. Wow. And then there's a grieving process. People will always go into deep grieving over how long they pretended they lived in a prison.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And they'll start to grieve that immediately. And then they'll also be so excited that they're free. So a real significant transformation, one of the hallmarks, is the person is laughing and crying at the same time.
Oh.
And this is where, again, we've opened up all the doors. And that's a big day when that happens. And
Really. Everything shifts. It's cool. I mean, a lot shifts.
yeah, a lot shifts in those moments.
In your life. Yeah. I have a beautiful example of that in one of your processes, in one of the inner guidance processes. I found myself, my body was like swimming, and it was like swimming, but it was like to survive. And I started to cry, and I was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm pretty sure it was a past life where I was drowning in the ocean or something like that. But something was guiding me and telling me, but you can do it. You can do it. And I was like, I can't. But I was like, but you can, so it was that negotiation. And then I was able to like make it to the beach, in just playing this all out. And I made it, and I was crying and laughing. Yeah, actually probably both. So it was like this beautiful, like, yeah, completion just to give people an understanding of like an example of what that might
Exactly, beautiful. And whether or not that was a so-called past life or a metaphoric, symbolic
be. Mm,
vision that's helping you come to terms with what you feel you can and can't do in life,
yeah.
whether it's embodying something for your lineage, whether it came from the collective, I say, that's, you can frame it however you want. In the quantum field of reality,
Mm-hmm.
there's no life that you're not living. uh, Everything is, yeah, like we can break it if we got into quantum conversations. None of that would hold water anyway, and it all would be okay anyway. So I say, frame it however feels good for you, and if it feels real or true or actual or was lived or is being lived, treat it as such and use it to liberate yourself in the, so you have more access to the present moment.
Got it. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Very beautiful advice. Let's see. What else? What do we have?
What else?
I am really curious if you have any energy updates for us. So, in terms of like, I'm using like cosmic news or something that's exciting for humanity to know right now. I'd love to know what's on your mind.
I would say, just in terms of, so I kind of keep abreast of a few people in the world that are working on some pretty big levels, and I connect with them, some personally and some through their messages, and I compare it to what I'm experiencing. And the latest, and actually, well, it's been coming for a while, but even those that were resistant to say this are now saying that awakening is happening more and more and more and more and more. They weren't saying it 20 years ago, even 10 or 5 years ago, even 2 years ago,
Oh,
but
wow.
they're saying it now. So this, and not only that we're awakening to what, and what is it, awakening, we could say very simply, sort of out of limited mindsets, out of fear-based or lack-based mindsets into more holistic, love-based, sustainable, what I call sustainable, conscious, consensual applications of
Mm-hmm.
experience. That not only that, but we're waking up in this way that's expanding the whole collective experience. Like we're evolving, we could say, and that which created us is also evolving. So if we were going to polarize that, hyper polarize that, and sort of us and God, we could say God is evolving and we're evolving. And it's always a feedback loop both ways. So when we learn, the universe learns. And when the universe learns, we learn. And this trend of Buddhism, what might be called the wheels turning, there's like an evolutionary upgrade of the turning of the wheel. And it's starting to really gain traction now. And it can look like the opposite, which is often what happens. It just like it, if we make a breakthrough for a human, it's really the same as the breakthrough for a universe or a collective or a species. And there tends to be this breakdown before there's a breakthrough.
Yeah, right.
And then there's in that breaking through, then there's this kind of orientation of sort of, growing up, or, kind of really showing up, or breaking up into the, truth of who we are. So it was really, there was some times where it was like, yeah, I'm not sure if we're going to make it. And I think the we're going to make it part, I think there's going to be some versions of, we're going to make it that are less desirable to some people than others. I think there's going to be a sharing of collective views around what making it looks like. Yeah, but we're on the uptrend of an exponential unfolding that's becoming very obvious to the people who work in these ways. So
Well,
positive
that's very good news.
Very
Yay.
good.
We're going to make it. Now, so everyone's having their own individual experiences, and then we're also having this collective experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's all happening. So, I'm curious, like some people maybe they'll take it in terms of like, I have my own completely own experience, but they forget that I don't know. I'm curious, like what your idea on that is, yeah.
Well, there's the personal, transpersonal, and collective experience. Let's just start with that trinity. So we could say that that looks like a transpersonal you, a personal you, and then let's say it's even a professional you. So there's the experience that you're having that's beyond you. You might call that spiritual or transcendent or meditative or something like that. And that's that you that some people love to touch upon or kind of bask in or merge with. And then there's this seemingly like personal you, this you that, when I go to sleep, I go in my bed. And when you go to sleep, you go into your bed. And it seems like we're different, even though we're part of one, we have this seeming different experience. And so that unique experience has its own world and its own projections and its own reality. Mm. And then there's the collective. Then we step out of ourselves and we really start to show up into the world now with cameras and connecting to people through different time and space, because people will watch this after it was recorded, and that will tap into a collective knowing and experience. Mm. Yeah, so let's just start with those three. So all of them are feeding into each other and influencing each other much, much more than we typically imagine. Mm. And this separation is breaking down, and people are starting to learn that you can't have a good personal life, professional life, and spiritual life if they're all not sort of addressing the same things in different ways. People try to compartmentalize them. It takes an extraordinary amount of energy to separate them. And the results typically are not fulfilling or sustainable, although you can succeed by doing that. The cost of that success is quite high. We're starting to learn the cost of that.
Got it. That's beautiful. Thank you. That tells me a lot. So a lot of people are, and so this is something that I'm realizing in my own life, that for a long time I didn't feel seen or heard. And I just think that this is a collective thing that people are struggling with. And so I'm curious for your own journey, Amara, when did you start feeling seen? Was there a moment in time, or was it just, over the course of time? And like, when did it hit you? And also, do you ever still struggle with not feeling seen or respected for who you are? Does that ever still show up for you?
Okay. I loved this question. Okay. Let me just look at what I wrote, because
of course, yeah.
this is really fun. Okay, so it really began when I unsaw myself. So there's an unseeing of this me that wants to be seen. I like when I really was able to see the me that wants to be seen, or sort of unsee myself in these old ways and kind of unravel myself, this me. To such a significant degree that I really broke through experientially, not just as an idea, but I broke through my, let's call it, egoic construct. And my me was not available to me in those ways anymore. That old me really wanted to be seen and heard, I'm sure, and wanted to be recognized and wanted to be a somebody or wanted to not be a somebody. I had lots of opinions about what she should or shouldn't be. So breaking through all of that is really, and meeting my deeper self, seeing my deeper self and meeting my truer self, which I would say me from manifested ego becomes the me of manifested energy. And I realized, oh, this transpersonal nature, I'm energy, I'm not just a me, right? Oh, that's different than what I was experiencing before. That's really different. Once that happened, and again, once that invitation was taken up into an integration, or in Buddhism, what we would call the abiding process, learning to abide in that. I think in modern terms, we'd call it integration. And like every time I drop the ball, pick it back up, pick it back up, pick it, like full devotion to that
Mm.
day after day after day. I began to meet myself and see that everything was meeting and seeing me, and seeing that there's not a lot of separation in that, although it looks like there is, there's not. And so it came to a point where I can't be not seen or met.
'Cause
Like that, you
realize
can't escape it.
how connected you are to everything. You are everything. Like, how
Yeah.
can you not be seen? Like, is what you're trying to
Yeah. So the sentiment to be seen is quite like, that would just make me laugh really hard, you know?
say.
It's like, that's hilarious. Like,
Yeah,
how do you, like, it requires a sense of lack and separation to even have that longing. Now,
got it.
so that's why part of why I was in such bliss for so long,
Mm.
is when that shifted.
Mm.
Um, Now, as that evolves and comes through, I'm not withholding myself from a human, so-called human, unique experience. In the everything and the nothing, there's a something that's having this experience of me. And she sometimes has this feeling of being like, it took many years. It wasn't up until very, very, very recently, I finally had the experience of loneliness. So after the awakening, it was preposterous to be lonely. Like, how is that even like unseen, unmet? You're always what you are. But then this human kind of like, oh yeah, humans need touch and they need connection and they need to tell people their secrets at night, or, you know. And
Yeah.
and then I felt this loneliness, but I couldn't take it for real in the same way, but I still needed to recognize it. Right. So then it was like, oh, now there's new information in the field. This is also happening. So now we're going to have to put some awareness and effort and action and alignment towards what is this so-called feeling of missing something.
Mm.
What does it need?
Yeah.
And then you just address that.
And do you meet the need? Do you go and to a friend's house, or do you just give yourself love, or how do you address
Oh, I go back into the same work. So I would go into the work of negotiating the part of me that wants to have that need met and what it requires of me. And then I would look and see, is there a part of me that's hesitant, like afraid of what that, like, oh, but what if I get, that old, what if I get rejected, or what if I,
it? Yeah.
and then I sit with myself and say, okay, I understand you want this. I understand you're afraid of that. I understand. Okay. And we start to build trust
Mm.
and my capacity to align. And then I will, as soon as I've done that and I've rebuilt trust with this expression that wants to come forward, then I take more risk and I go into manifesting it.
Mm.
Or we could say I allow the manifestation to come.
Um, and are there moments when you don't need to manifest it? Is that, or do you usually, does that help you? Is it
Yeah. So,
times? Is it
yeah, and manifesting. Go ahead. What's the
is
question?
it different in different times, or is it usually that's your process?
Um, So when we could say that which I am is following its truest impulse. I'm manifesting. We're all manifesting all the time.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got a meal for yourself, you manifested it. Um, I have to really look at why I'm doing it consciously. Why would I manifest something consciously? Is it coming from a drive of a sense of lack?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it coming from a sense of love? Is it coming from an
Yeah,
illusion, or is it coming from an inspiration? So I'll really check in with myself.
that makes
When
sense.
there's no lack involved, you really don't have to do very much. It just is just a quick little tick, and then it shows up. For instance, recently I said, oh, I would like to have $20,000 to be able to jumpstart this program, seed this program, and I would just like it gifted. It wasn't coming from like, if I don't get that, I'm gonna not be okay.
Yeah.
Um, if I don't get it, something else will occur, or I'll find another way, or I'll be taught a lesson, or I'll be shown something, or whatever. So it was just an impulse of inspiration. I hold it lightly and I present it out. 2 days later, I met someone at a party who then said, I'd like to know more about you. We went out to dinner. And at the end of dinner, he said, you know what, I'd be happy to give you $10,000, $20,000 to jumpstart your program.
Wow. With ease.
such ease. And it's not fair to say I do that. I would say this happens often to me in many, many ways. If I were saying, okay, now I'm going to manifest $10,000 and I want it to be like this, it'll be like this and like this, I still could get it with the persuasiveness of my free will application, but there will be a price to pay. A lesson to be learned. And I know if I have a calling to do that, then I have to ask myself, is this the only way? Like, do you really want to manifest this? Because careful, you're going to get it.
Right.
And then you're going to learn what you couldn't see before that was creating that was embedded in that lack.
Yeah, because then it manifests before you. The energy you're putting out, it'll be in there.
It'll be in there. It'll be in there. So only if my really selfish little side that has lost trust or broken trust with the truth of what she is says, yes, I still want it, that way, then I'll say, well, okay,
Funny. And then you just play with it. And
I just play with it. That I ask that the lesson that I'm fighting for be learned very quickly.
Oh, okay. Nice. So intentional. Like, I just feel like as we awaken, it's just more and more intentional. Like every moment, you're seeding with intention. So cool. Let's see here. Okay. So I know as, spiritual way showers, spiritual teachers, people like yourself, a lot of people put those kind of people on pedestals. And so, to avoid that, so it's something I know that we should all get away from, I feel. And I feel that you feel that way too. So curious, is there anything vulnerable that you would like to share with us, so that people don't just think you're perfect and have it all together and know everything now?
Okay. Yeah, I love that. Because, vulnerability is really key. And vulnerability always involves a risk. It's an emotional risk. If there's no risk, there's no vulnerability. There's just emotionality, but there's no vulnerability. So the risk is typically I'll get something I want, or I won't, and then I'll have to just live with that and see what's in that, right?
Right.
Yeah, I guess I would say I was that there's two things. One, once you make a decision, once you choose something and you really decide, and the root of that word is to really cut off all other possibilities. Again, why am I deciding this? Is it me that's feeling a sense of lack and therefore I must have in order to be okay? And once I have that, then, the if or when I have this, then I'll be that. Always a trap. Never fulfilling. Just cut to the chase and know that now.
Got it.
But if you're deciding, because everything in you, your alignment of all that you are or want to be and all that you're becoming, and all of that's lining up. Or even more, if it feels as if it's being decided for you, because anything else but that would just be not even tolerable to your system. So that's what's happened to me. I've always been headed there, but I recently just decided that I was going to become public in sharing my experiences of working with thousands of people in this little island in Bali, and going into deep work day after day after day, and all that's been realized from that, and share that information and compare that information and offer that up. And those processes, and just really like, what's the bigger conversation out there? Let's have that. And I decided I was going to do it, and it took some threshold work of me kind of facing the camera and facing the collective field.
Mm.
So one is that, the vulnerability is, so I'm stepping out now, and I've had this 7-year period. I had 7 months of intense transformation after my tipping point, the tipping point that was experienced. I've had 7 years of deep integration, and it has really chewed me up and spit me out, and affected me on a personal, transpersonal, and professional level. So now it's as if that it would be really negligent,
Mm.
is the word I would like to use, to not come out
Mm.
and be more visible and make those inroads. So yeah, I guess the vulnerability is sort of like, oh, here I come, and that's going to invite in a lot of different things. Even more vulnerable to that, I will say, I am also inviting in a life partner into my life. And so I'll just kind of let whoever watches this in the world know that.
Any very good looking, spiritually aware and amazing men out there, if you're watching this, look at this.
If you happen to be watching.
This incredible woman.
Yeah, so I'll be vulnerable and send out the request to let you know that I'm open to finding an aligned life partner, and that who is really higher purpose driven, and supportive of that higher purpose driven expression that lives through me and as me now. I'm not just a me anymore. It's much bigger than me. So someone who's okay with the what's bigger than me way of living. And that can get really intimidating to somebody that's kind of in the, hey, what about me boat.
Yeah.
There's times for that, but like I usually end up kind of leaving those people in the dust. So it's kind of like, pick up and let's go. It's got to kind of move into that world. And then,
because you're growing so rapidly.
Yeah. And then of course they must be age appropriate.
18-year-olds.
And compatible. And willing to craft a life that this universe is asking for us. And what I love about, and I coach couples, I work a lot with couples, and I'm a big advocate of couples grounding in their own support of themselves, each one mutually. I'm taking care of myself. Okay, great. I'm taking care of myself, and I'm taking care of you, and I'm taking care of you. Now we have a holistic framework, and then building trust in that. So really it's more of an invitation to build trust with someone. And I'm touching this very lightly because I can again ask for what I want and it will show up. The but will be quite something I need to look at. And I have. And so now I'm just really honing in on the values that are there and letting everything else fall into place.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful. Like we love, like I'm sure everyone watching is like, oh, I love it. Like, oh, Amara and calling in.
Yeah, it's really it's sweet.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and I did. Yeah, okay, maybe I won't go into that conversation yet. But anyway, ask me. Yeah, that's next episode.
Sounds good. Okay, so I would love to know, and I'm sure a lot of people would like to know, what personal offerings that you're most excited to share right now. So I know you have a lot going on.
Yeah, so actually starting today, sometime in November of 2019, we're beginning to create the online courses. And the goal of these is to take this life transformational work, this work that people always say the same feedback. I wish I had learned this sooner. I wish they taught this in school. I wish I'd known this earlier. Like, you've changed my life. You've changed my life. And what that really means is I've just provided people with the tools to then access their own wisdom. That's all I've done. I didn't change their lives. they stepped up and allowed me to assist them in changing their own lives. So we're creating these programs online. It's kind of just a real core foundation for how you can meet yourself, as you were talking about, so that you can really get met by others who want to meet you and get into the juiciness of all that. That's something I'm working on. It's not ready yet. I'm halfway through the new website, so the website up now is going to be completely changed. And when you see the one that highlights our membership program, I'm really excited about the membership program, because that's where I get asked so many times, how can I work with you, or what can I do, or how can I connect? So all the answers are going to be in there.
Awesome.
And that's how you're going to get to be able to be face to face like this, and possibly other ways with me. Of course, I do personal sessions and mentorship, but I'm doing less and less of those. But they're still available to a handful of people. We have mapped out the year calendar, so I have the really intense transformational programs happening in Bali and a little bit in Europe last year. And I'm also opening up to ways to share it more and more. But for those who want to tap in, right now we have a 6-day program. I have a 12-day training program that we're also evolving so that people can take these skills and use them.
And that is amazing. I've done that program. And intense is a good word, but it's like, intense in like the best way. You will transform. I mean, it is incredible. It's the most deep work I've ever done in my life. So I can't do it.
So we're scaling that program to kind of break it into pieces, which I was avoiding for a long time. But we're also going to keep the deep, intense always available for those that are super ready for that. And then, we'll be doing it online, and definitely jump into the membership. It should be done in about a month.
Awesome.
And I'm excited to meet with people in that way. And then we're, I'm hiring someone to help put me out there in the social media world. That's being activated right now. So everything's right now. And I'm just breaking ground this week. It's been a 9-month process, literally 9 months, but I'm signing the lease on land here in Bali, and I'm activating the business. And so we're going to have the official center starting. And if anyone wants to know, how can I help? What can I do? Write to me, look us up, definitely come and, sign up for an online call, or sign up for a private session, or come to a retreat, or, keep checking in, or just opt into the newsletter on my website so that you can get hey, here's the new programs.
Exactly. I'll be sure to include your website in the text on this video so you can check that out, people.
Yeah. And if you are if anyone's watching and they're like, well, I'd really like to talk deeper about what she's talking about, I'd like to unpack that a bit more. I'm open to conversations and showing up at places. I've been showing up in front of bigger audiences now, and the impact is phenomenal. So I'm excited.
I'm sure. Amazing. One last question, if you're open, you have a few more minutes. Is that okay?
Yep. Okay.
Okay, cool. What would be your message to humanity if you were to cross over tomorrow and you had one thing you really feel people need to hear right now, in these times? What would that be?
It's to really never give up on your capacity to redeem yourself and to allow others to be redeemed. Every human, no matter where they fit on the spectrum, or how we might accept them or judge them, has a capacity to meet the greater truth, to be forgiven, to forgive others, to set things right, to start again, to rehabilitate themselves, to rebuild trust back. As a species, we need to build trust back in ourselves, our countries, our governments, our leaders. We need to rearrange and rebuild some things, and just never lose sight of that. And even if you feel you're fighting a lost cause, energy doesn't get wasted. So if you exit in the great sort of redemption process, you'll end up in a good place. It's okay.
So beautiful. And like, it's just what I needed to hear. So thank you for that. Oh, I mean, well, thank you so much, Amara. It's such a pleasure. And
Thank you.
like I said, I'll put up Amara's website on the text of this video. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Wishing you all a blessed day and whatever time it is for you.
Yeah, let's connect again. And
Yeah,
I look forward to all that you're offering as well.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Bye, sweetheart.